Hello, and welcome to Lyla's Lullabies, where we spend time exploring with Lyla, a traveler who wanders the world at her own pace, while sharing her most enriching and restorative moments with you. In tonight's story, we'll follow Lyla as she explores the scenic California city of San Diego. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to remember. Just settle in, get comfortable, and let yourself go. We're so glad you're here. Whenever you're ready, let's begin. The early morning train pulled out of Union Station in Los Angeles just after 7. The Pacific Surfliner, beginning its journey south along the California coast. Lyla settled into her window seat, and her friend Max slid in beside her, already holding 2 cups of coffee he'd grabbed from the cafe car. "Here," he said, handing her one. "Figured we'd need caffeine for the early start." "You're a lifesaver. Thank you." Max lived in Los Angeles, working in music production for the past 5 years or so, and they'd stayed friends since meeting at a jazz concert in San Francisco years ago. When Lyla had mentioned she'd be in Southern California, he'd immediately suggested the train to San Diego, insisting it was one of the most beautiful rail journeys in the country. The train gathered speed, leaving behind the industrial sprawl of downtown LA and heading south through suburbs that gradually gave way to more open landscape. Lyla sipped her coffee and watched out the window as the scenery shifted. Neighborhoods and shopping centers giving way to coastal bluffs and the Pacific Ocean appearing on their right. "There it is," Max said, gesturing toward the water. "We'll be following the coast almost the whole way now. Just wait. It gets better." He was right. As they continued south, the ocean became a constant companion, the tracks running so close to the water in places that it felt like they were traveling on the edge of the continent. The September morning was clear and beautiful, the sun already warm, the water a deep blue marked with white caps. They passed through beach communities, San Clemente with its Spanish-style buildings and pier, Oceanside with its long stretch of sand, Carlsbad with its flower fields visible in the distance. The train swayed gently with the rhythm of the tracks, and other passengers were equally absorbed in the views, phones and cameras out, capturing the coastline. "I never get tired of this ride," Max said, watching surfers in the water as they passed through Encinitas. "There's something about traveling by train along the coast. I love watching each city unfold along the way." They talked intermittently, but mostly just enjoyed the journey in comfortable silence. The train made brief stops at various stations, people boarding and disembarking, but the rhythm continued steadily southward. The coastline remained spectacular, dramatic bluffs, hidden coves, long beaches with morning walkers and joggers. Around 9, the train began to slow as it approached San Diego, the sprawl of the city gradually appearing. The tracks curved inland slightly, passing through neighborhoods before arriving at Santa Fe Depot, the downtown station with its distinctive Spanish colonial revival architecture. "Welcome to San Diego," Max said as they gathered their bags. "America's finest city, as they like to call it. Let's get our rental car and head to La Jolla." The car rental process was quick and efficient, and soon they were driving north on I-5 before exiting toward La Jolla. The neighborhood was affluent and beautiful, with palm trees lining the streets, upscale shops and restaurants, and glimpses of the ocean between buildings. They parked near the village and walked through the town, browsing in shops that sold everything from surf gear to fine art to expensive jewelry. The whole area had a relaxed, moneyed vibe. People in designer casual wear, walking small dogs, outdoor cafes with pristine white tablecloths, galleries showcasing contemporary art. But the real attraction was the coast. They walked toward the water, following signs to the cove, and soon La Jolla's dramatic coastline revealed itself. The cliffs were rugged and sculptural, carved by millennia of waves, and the water was an incredible deep blue, crystal clear in the shallows. And then they heard the barking, deep resonant sounds coming from the rocks below. Sea lions, dozens of them, were hauled out on the rocks and swimming in the protected cove, their sleek bodies perfectly adapted for the ocean. They lounged on the rocks like sun worshippers, occasionally barking at each other or slipping into the water with surprising grace. "This is amazing," Lyla said, watching a sea lion dive into the clear water and reappear moments later with a fish. They spent almost an hour at the cove, walking along the path that hugged the cliffside, watching the sea lions and harbor seals, photographing the dramatic coastline. Other visitors were equally captivated. Families with children pointing excitedly at the animals, photographers with serious equipment, tourists from around the world speaking a dozen different languages. Further along the coast, they walked to the children's pool, where more seals lounged on a small beach, completely unbothered by the crowds watching from the seawall. The seals were in various states of relaxation, some sleeping, some scratching themselves with flippers, pups nursing from their mothers. "They act like they own the place," Max observed with a smile. "I'd say they do," Lyla replied. After exploring the coastline, they headed back toward the village for lunch, finding a cafe with outdoor seating and ocean views. They ordered fish tacos, a San Diego staple, Max insisted, and they arrived fresh and perfectly prepared, the fish grilled and flaky, the slaw crisp and tangy, everything wrapped in warm corn tortillas. "These might be the best fish tacos I've ever had," Lyla admitted, reaching for another. San Diego takes its fish tacos very seriously. It's practically a civic duty to make them well. After lunch, they drove back toward downtown San Diego, the route taking them along the coast before turning inland. The city had a different feel from LA, more compact, more relaxed, with the ocean feeling more central to its identity. They parked near Seaport Village, a waterfront shopping and dining complex with a boardwalk atmosphere. The village was designed to evoke an old California fishing village, with wooden walkways, courtyards, and views across the harbor to Coronado Island. They strolled along the waterfront, watching boats in the harbor, sailboats, Navy ships, the occasional yacht, and tourist vessels offering harbor cruises. Street performers entertained crowds, a juggler, a musician playing guitar, a caricature artist sketching tourists. The shops were a mix of touristy and genuinely interesting. They browsed through a store selling handmade jewelry, another with vintage surfboards and beach memorabilia, a bookshop with a good selection of California history and nature guides. And then Max spotted it, a vinyl record shop tucked between two larger stores, its window display featuring classic jazz albums and vintage turntables. "We have to go in," he said, already heading for the door. Inside, the shop was a music lover's dream. Crates of records organized by genre, walls covered with album covers and band posters, listening stations where you could sample records before buying. The owner, a man probably in his 60s with gray hair and a Miles Davis t-shirt, looked up from the counter where he was reading a book about John Coltrane. "Welcome. Let me know if you need anything. Jazz is in the back section, recently got in some nice pressings." Max and Lyla made their way to the jazz section, and immediately they were both absorbed, flipping through records, occasionally pulling one out to examine the cover or read the liner notes. The selection was impressive. Blue Note classics, rare pressings of Thelonious Monk and Charles Mingus, some contemporary jazz that the owner had marked with handwritten recommendation cards. "Look at this," Max said, holding up a pristine copy of Bill Evans' Waltz for Debbie. Original pressing. Looks like it's in great condition. "Are you gonna get it?" "Definitely. What about you?" Lyla had found a Chet Baker album she'd been looking for, one of his less famous recordings, but beautifully done. She also pulled out a Sarah Vaughan record, the cover showing her in an elegant pose, the track listing promising an evening of pure vocal jazz. They brought their selections to the counter, and the owner examined each one appreciatively. "Good choices. The Bill Evans is special. That's from the Village Vanguard sessions. You can hear the audience in the background, but it adds to the atmosphere rather than detracting." "I've wanted this recording for a while," Max said. "Found it on streaming, but there's something about vinyl that streaming can't replicate." "You understand," the owner said, nodding with approval. "There's a ritual to vinyl. Selecting the record, placing it on the turntable, that moment before the needle drops. Then the crackle," he laughed. "It makes you listen differently, more intentionally." They chatted for a few more minutes about jazz and San Diego's music scene, the owner recommending a few clubs worth checking out if they had time. He wrapped their records carefully in paper, placing them in sturdy bags. Back outside, the afternoon was well advanced, the sun lower in the sky and the September heat beginning to ease. Max suggested they drive through Balboa Park on the way to Coronado. "It's one of the largest urban parks in the country," he explained as they drove. "Lots of museums, gardens, the San Diego Zoo. We don't have time to stop today, but we can drive through and let you see it." Balboa Park was indeed impressive. Over 1,000 acres of gardens, museums, and cultural institutions, all designed in Spanish colonial revival architecture. They drove slowly through the park, admiring the ornate buildings, the lush gardens, the sense of space and beauty in the heart of the city. Families were picnicking on lawns, people walking dogs on paths, a wedding party taking photos in front of one of the museums. The whole park had a relaxed, civilized atmosphere, a place where the city came together to enjoy culture and nature. From Balboa Park, they drove toward Coronado Island, crossing the dramatic Coronado Bridge that arched high above San Diego Bay. The views from the bridge were spectacular. The city skyline, naval ships in the harbor, the Pacific Ocean beyond. Coronado itself was beautiful in a carefully maintained way. Wide streets, elegant homes, the famous Hotel del Coronado visible in the distance with its distinctive red turrets. They drove along Ocean Boulevard, catching glimpses of the beach between houses and the hotel grounds. The beach here is supposed to be one of the best in the country, Max said. But I want to take you to Sunset Cliffs. It's incredible. They recrossed the bridge and drove to Point Loma, following signs to Sunset Cliffs Natural Park. The area was dramatically different from the polished beauty of Coronado, wild and rugged, with sandstone cliffs carved by wind and waves into dramatic shapes and formations. They parked and walked along the clifftop path, the ocean stretching endlessly to the west, the waves crashing against the rocks below with impressive force. Other people were scattered along the cliffs, some sitting on the edge, others standing in small groups, all waiting for the sunset. The cliffs themselves were beautiful, layered sandstone in shades of tan and brown and orange, worn into caves and arches in strange sculptural forms. The late afternoon light made everything glow, and the ocean was a deep blue, marked with white foam where waves broke against rocks. They found a spot on a flat section of rock, sitting down to wait for sunset. The September evening was perfect, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze coming off the ocean. Seabirds wheeled overhead, their calls mixing with the sound of waves. "This is one of my favorite spots in all of Southern California," Max said, watching the horizon. "There's something about it. It's wild, you know. Just being here, knowing that it has existed like this for, well, millennia, I guess." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower, the sky beginning its transformation. The clouds caught the light first, their undersides turning pink and gold, and then the whole sky began to shift through shades of orange and amber and deep rose. The sun touched the horizon, and everything intensified. The colors deeper, more saturated, the ocean reflecting the sky like a mirror. Other people along the cliffs grew quieter, everyone absorbed in the spectacle. A few people had brought instruments. Someone played guitar softly, someone else had a small drum, the music blending with the natural sounds of wind and waves. The sun continued its descent, half visible now, painting the sky in increasingly dramatic colors. The clouds were brilliant orange and pink against a sky that was turning from blue to purple. The ocean was on fire with reflected light, and the wet rocks below gleamed like polished metal. "Days like this," Max said quietly, "remind me why I stay in California. Despite everything, the traffic, the cost, the crowds, there are moments like this that make it all worthwhile." The last sliver of sun disappeared below the horizon, and the sky held its color for a long moment, that magic time when day hasn't quite surrendered to night. The colors gradually softened, shifting from brilliant to pastel, the sky becoming a canvas of lavender and soft pink and deepening blue. Max stood eventually, checking his phone for the time. "We should probably head back soon. Got to return the car and catch the train back to LA. "Can I stay a few more minutes?" Lyla asked, smiling. "Meet you at the car in 5? "Take your time, I'll go grab us some water from that stand we passed." Max walked back toward the parking area, and Lyla remained sitting on the cliff, watching as the last light faded from the sky. The ocean continued its eternal rhythm below, waves crashing and retreating, the sound constant and soothing. Stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, first just a few, and then more, becoming visible as the light faded. She thought about the day. The beautiful train ride along the coast, the sea lions barking on the rocks at La Jolla, the pleasure of finding good vinyl in an unexpected shop, the drive through Balboa Park's green beauty, and now this perfect sunset at the edge of the continent. She thought about Max and their friendship built on a shared love of music, how that common language created connection even when they went months without seeing each other. The breeze off the ocean carried the scent of salt and kelp and that indefinable smell of the sea, ancient and clean and constantly renewing. The waves below continued their patient work of shaping the cliffs, a process that had been happening for millennia and would continue long after she'd gone, after everyone had gone. The ocean and the rocks engaged in their slow conversation, without need for witnesses. A pelican glided past, riding the updrafts from the cliffs with wings that barely moved, perfectly adapted to this environment, this edge where land met sea. Lyla watched it disappear into the gathering darkness, and then turned her gaze back to the ocean, to the horizon where the last hint of light was fading, to the vast expanse of Pacific that stretched all the way to distant shores, connecting California to other lands, other lives, other stories. The day's warmth was fading now, the September evening cooling. She sat there at the edge of the continent, watching the ocean and the darkening sky, her thoughts drifting peacefully like the kelp in the waters below, carried by currents she didn't need to understand, content to simply be here, in this moment, at this beautiful edge of the world, grateful for the day and the journey, and the eternal conversation between land and sea that would continue long after she'd gone, patient and powerful and endlessly, peacefully present.